Hi, my name is Tammy Harding. Um, this is my presentation for a TED Talk. I'm not able to use um, my work's conference room like I was for my last talk, so I'm just trying to make the best of this. I was involved in a presentation today, and it was a Zoom presentation, and I found that I was a little bit unfamiliar with presenting over Zoom. So I decided that I might as well use this opportunity to present over Zoom. So that's what I'm going to do. So if you'll give me just a minute to share my screen, I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you. Hey guys, my name is Tammy Harding, and I'm the emergency manager here at the university. Have been at the university for since 2014, so that's exciting. This is my family. Wanted to just give a brief introduction as to who I am. I have 4 children. Three of those children are married, and then we have our dog Max. He's a huge part of our family. So we just wanted to give that introduction. Before I came to the university, I worked as a first responder. So I was worked with a local ambulance. So today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about let me see. Protective actions. Before I get started on this, I just wanted to share a little story that happened at our house this week. We were at dinner with my youngest daughter, and she was commenting to us about um, how next week is going to be our um, anniversary of our house fire. And no, we don't celebrate that anniversary. Our house fire was quite traumatic for all of us. Um, but that house fire that occurred, my children were young. It was, gosh, about 13, 14 years ago. Um, but my children were young at the time. It was in April, and as those of you from Utah know, in April it snows still, and so it happened to be snowing the night of our house fire. My husband was at work, and so it was just me and the children home. They recognized the smell of something burning, and they looked for the source. And then when they opened the door, the smoke came out and smoke alarms went off. But we had been, up until that point, we had been doing some emergency preparedness planning. So once a week, we would have a family night, and some of those family nights were dedicated to being prepared in an emergency. And as part of those preparations, we talked about having out of state contacts and where the kids could find the phone numbers for those contacts. That way, if for some reason they were unable to reach us in an emergency, then they could report, call, and let those people know out of state that they were okay. We also talked about a location here in our town where the children could go to if they were unable to get home for some reason. And then we also had a meeting spot if we needed to evacuate our home, if there was a fire or something went wrong with our home and we needed to evacuate. We had a meeting spot across the street at the light pole, and that's where we would meet. So I'm grateful for those preparations because when we actually had a house fire, my children knew exactly what to do. I didn't have to tell them. They all evacuated the home, and they went and stood at the corner by the light pole and waited for me to get there with them. So evacuation, that's really an important thing, and evacuation is a protective action. So that's one of the things that we're gonna talk about today. The first, just to give you a little bit of history on the protective actions for what we're going to talk about today for the university. Um, Protective actions are really simple instructions. They're research-based. FEMA has done quite a bit of research on this, but they're just simple messages that will convey simple instructions. So, for example, duck or cover or hang on or something like that. Just really simple instructions that anybody can understand. And by following those, you'll be kept safe. So, we convened a committee um, We got people from emergency management, risk management at the university, also the university police and security, as well as someone from our university communications office. And we began to have conversations about what the protective actions for our university should be. Um, we looked at lots of different cases. We looked at some of the research that FEMA has done and some of the different cases, like active shooter cases, things like that. We also looked at lots of other schools. We looked at K through 12 schools. We looked at other institutions of higher education, not just here in Utah, but across the United States. And these were some of the common terms that we had heard or had seen used at those other locations. So we took those terms to our policy group, and our policy group, we counseled with them on it, and they determined that these protective actions would be what we would use for our university. So evacuate, seek shelter, and stay put are the protective action wording that we will be using for our university here. Evacuate is a really important one. I just shared with you a personal experience of when my children needed to evacuate our home, and how grateful I am that they knew what to do in that moment. As I was researching this, I ran across some statistics from Hurricane Katrina. One of those statistics said that over 1,400 people perished in Hurricane Katrina. And of those 1,400 people, approximately 2/3 of those individuals passed away in their own homes. Some of them drowned, some of them died from other causes. But ultimately, those individuals either chose not to evacuate or they were unable to evacuate. And because of that, they died. So evacuation is really, really important. If you're told to evacuate, you really should. So what is evacuate? Evacuate is getting out of the building, getting out of the area, getting out of danger is really what evacuate is. You just want to walk calmly, don't use elevators, just get to the nearest exit as quick as you can. We've talked about a couple situations where you may need to evacuate, but here's a couple more. A bomb threat. Perhaps there's a bomb threat at your facility, or like I talked about, a house fire or a fire, or maybe there's flooding or an indoor gas leak or something like that. Those are all reasons why you may need to evacuate. Again, if you're being asked to evacuate, please follow law enforcement or whoever is directing you. Their intentions are just to keep you safe and to help you stay safe. The next protective action that our university will be using is seek shelter. So it's really important to be able to seek shelter. And what that means is you'll be inside with doors closed, windows closed, again, not using elevators. You just want to stay inside and stay away from whatever is causing the issue. Generally, when you're advised to seek shelter, that could be during a severe weather event, or maybe again, there's a chemical leak or some type of hazard in the environment and you need to get inside. After seek shelter, stay put. And this one's a little bit different than what some of the others, universities and cities and governments have, or what they might be using. And often you could hear it as, shelter in place or secure in place. In this case, for our university, we're going to use stay put. And stay put is one that we just want people to know they're safe. They're safe where they are, but we just need them to stay where they are, no matter what's going on outside or what's causing this situation. If you can just stay where you are, you'll be safe. So that is what stay put is. Some examples of when you may want to stay put is maybe there's a medical emergency in your building. Maybe there's some criminal activity nearby, or a police investigation, or even an animal in the building. I have a funny story about that really kind of stresses how important it is to stay put. So our local church, they do a young women's camp. And so they'll take all the young women aged 12 to 18, and they'll take them to a place, often in the wilderness, and they'll go on a camp. The camp can be anywhere from, you know, 1 or 2 nights to 5 nights. So we had an instance that I was involved in. I was one of the leaders for this camp, and we were in the mountains, the wilderness here near our home. Um, and uh, the camp facilities, they have cabins. Please don't think those are anything fancy. They're actually just sketchy cinder block buildings, with metal roofs, so nothing fancy. But there's some cabins that the young ladies can stay in, and there's kind of like a group of them that are kind of up on the hill, and then there's a little bit down lower. And my group happened to be staying in the upper section. Well, one of the leaders in the lower section happened to bring her family favorite German chocolate cake. Like, it was just raved about. It was like a recipe handed down in her family and super important to her and her family. So she made that cake for those that were in her camp, and they just had a great time. So they all went to bed that night, but they forgot one important thing. They left the cake out on a picnic table when they all went to bed. And we're in the wilderness, so a bear got a smell of the cake and decided he wanted to taste it as well. So the bear went over and was eating the cake. It woke up some of our men that were camped close by in tents, to help keep us safe, and it woke them up, and so they were able to get up and scare the bear away. Um, but the bear didn't stay away for long. The bear really, really liked that cake as well. So the bear just stayed on that kind of the outskirts of the camp. Um, the men tried to chase it away. They called our local Forest Service. The Forest Service sent up some dogs, and the dogs tried to chase the bear away, and the bear just wouldn't go far. He just stayed right there next to our camp. And this whole time they were worried about the leaders and the young women. You know, there was about 400 people up at this camp, and there have been instances of bear attacks in the area before, so everybody was a little bit nervous. But they all had a shelter in our cabins. We all had to just stay in our cabins. We were safe and we were fine, but we all had to remain in our cabins. We couldn't come out because the bear was just right there. So the dogs didn't work. Chasing the bear away by the dogs, that didn't work. So the Forest Service brought up some traps. And if you've ever seen a bear trap, it's a 55-gallon drum, and they put some treats inside, and the bear goes in, and the door shuts, and then the bear is stuck in this drum, and then they can take the bear to wherever they need to take it, far away from the area, so that it doesn't continue to come back into the area. But anyway, so they brought up this trap, and they were trying to get the bear to go in this trap, and they threw all kinds of yummy things in there, like cookies and donuts and anything they can think of to throw in there. But the bear just wouldn't go in the trap. But the bear kept getting into the garbages. He was just really causing some trouble. And meanwhile, we all stayed in our cabins. We were all sheltering in our cabins. Well, one of these leaders finally got fed up. They had had enough of this bear. It had been about 2 days. All the girls were kind of locked in our cabins, and we couldn't really leave. If somebody had to go to the bathroom, they were escorted to the bathroom. So it was starting to become a huge issue. Um, Anyways, one of the leaders just had enough, and so she grabbed the trash and she started to go through the trash, and she found any crumbs, anything, any remnants of this amazing cake that the bear had liked so much, and she put whatever crumbs she could find in that bear trap. And within just a few minutes, that bear had gone in the trap, and they were able to capture it, and they were able to take it away. But that was kind of a scary story that I experienced, where it was really important that we just stay put. There wasn't any real hazard to us. We were safe as long as we followed the direction to stay put. So that was kind of an interesting situation. Another protective actions that you might here at our university is run, hide, or fight. This is super important. Anytime there's an active aggressor or somebody's, being super grumpy, just get away from the situation. That's the most important thing. I won't go too much into this because I know our police just recently did a presentation for you on this. So I don't want to go too much into it, but we'll touch on it a little bit. So the first one is run, right? The most important thing for you is to get away. Get away is the top priority. If you have the ability to get away, then you need to do that. You should get away. Call 911 as soon as you're able to. The second one is hide. Hide. If you can't run, you can't get away, then hide. Silence your phone, even on vibrate. Don't have your phone on vibrate. Silence your phone. Turn off lights, lock the doors if you can, block the doors with heavy objects if you can, and do whatever you can to hide. And you can text 911. They're gonna answer your text. Know that you can do that, but hide. So running, getting away, or hiding. The next one is fight. Sometimes we hear fight as a last resort. They'll say, and as a last resort, you could fight. I don't want you to think about that as a last resort. It may be your only option. It may be your best option. You know, not long ago, there was a shooting that I was aware of, and it happened in a bar, and it was on the East Coast. And in that bar, the individual came in, the shooter, and he started to shoot up the place. He was shooting individuals, and everybody ran and everybody hid. Well, the shooter, his gun jammed, and it took him several minutes to get it unjammed. And once it unjammed, he started shooting people again. And people still screaming, running, hiding, doing whatever they could to get away. Well, the shooter's gun jammed a second time, and he still was able to get it unjammed. Took him a couple minutes. He got it unjammed, and then he started shooting people again. And many people died. At any time, somebody could have gone up and attacked that guy, or knocked him down, or knocked the gun out of his hand. Some of those people could have done that, and that would have saved so many lives. But sometimes we're so conditioned to run, and we're so conditioned to fight that, or to hide, that we forget about fighting. We forget that sometimes we have to be aggressive ourselves. We have to fight to save our lives. So please don't think of fighting as a last resort. If you have to fight, you fight with everything that you have. You do whatever you can to fight, and you use whatever you can that is around you as a weapon. You know, I've heard some people complain a little bit because some of these active shooter campaigns or public safety announcements, things like that, sometimes they'll show like somebody throwing an eraser at the individual, right, at the shooter. And what's an eraser going to do for, throwing an eraser? What is that going to do to somebody who has a gun and who's shooting? Well, actually, I want you to think that it is going to do something. It's going to distract him. And if you distract him, then that's not what he's planning on. You can distract him, you can disarm him, you can do all sorts of things. So even something as simple as like an eraser or something like that, you can use that to your advantage, and you can use that as a weapon. And so please don't ever think that fighting is the last resort. Fighting may very well be your best option, and fighting may very well be what will save your life. So these are the protective actions that we're going to use at our university, and this is the wording that you'll receive if you get an emergency alert from us. Evacuate, seek shelter, stay put, and run, hide, or fight. Those are that's the wording that you will get in the emergency notifications from the university. That's really all I have for you. Is there any questions or anything? Okay, well, thank you for your time today. I appreciate you listening to me, and have a good day.